We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. Pete Buttigieg criticizes J.D. Vance's rapid political rise and Peter Thiel's support despite the GOP's anti-marriage equality stance. The gay Secretary of Transportation explains why a gay billionaire is supporting the anti-gay vice presidential candidate.
A leaked Microsoft email reveals layoffs of the entire diversity, equity, and inclusion team due to changing business needs.
Chad Felix Greene's critiques the singular they pronoun faces pushback as experts defend its historical and modern usage.
Yemi Alade headlines Atlanta's Global Black Pride, joined by Billy Porter and Omawumi, featuring music, films, and cultural events.
A survey reveals that 44% of Gen Z identify as not fully straight, reflecting growing acceptance amidst persistent discrimination.
Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand and on your favorite streaming channels. We are proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ. We have had more than 9 million views. It is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in the LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our queer culture, the Black community, Latino, lesbians and queer women, trans, students, youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
In 2024, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and the broader community.
Let's welcome tonight's anchors at Queer News Tonight. First up, let's welcome anchor Rajee Narine-Singh, a famous transgender activist, actress, author, mystic, and reality TV personality, and a great friend.
Aww.
She is of multiracial descent and has appeared on more than 35 television shows across the globe. She's an activist for Trans Social. Welcome, Rajee.
Thank you so much, and flattery will get you everywhere. It's great to be back. So I'm back, and I'm ready.
Awesome.
I hope you are.
Let's welcome Alex Morash. Alex has written for The Advocate and served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine. He's also served as media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Jeff. You know, I have to thank Bobby Hune for the wonderful birthday wishes he gave me last week by telling everyone that yesterday was his birthday and wishing him not only a happy birthday, but reminding our viewers he's older than me.
Happy birthday, Bobby. Let's welcome anchor Klifton Fehr. Klifton has been an active mental health professional within the South Florida area for over 15 years. He has been working throughout the country with corporate business leaders and businesses for the past 3 years throughout the pandemic to address mental health challenges within the workspace. Good evening, Klifton.
Good evening, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's really good to be back.
Happy to have you. And finally, let's welcome Michael Greene. He is the Community Linkage and Liaison Coordinator for Holy Cross Health and serves as the chairman of the Broward County Ending the HIV Epidemic Advisory Board. His passions include movies, music, and international travel. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Jeff, and to my esteemed colleagues, I'm very happy to be here. And as I tell people, you're never too old for a first-time experience.
Hello. I love it.
And of course, this is tonight's lead anchor, Jeff Oliverio. He is a financial advisor and certified financial planner with Truist Wealth in Fort Lauderdale. Jeff is one of the founders and president of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council. He has also served as co-chair for the National LGBTQ Task Force Gala since 2021. Welcome, Jeff.
Happy to be here. Happy to have this great cast with us. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. First up this evening, let's queer up politics. Buttigieg slams J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel on Real Time with Bill Maher. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg took a sharp aim at J.D. Vance, who is the former President Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. He was talking on this week's Real Time with Bill Maher. Speaking as a campaign surrogate and not in his official capacity, Buttigieg delivered a pointed critique of Vance's rapid ascent in politics. Buttigieg also delved into the role of Peter Thiel, the openly gay tech billionaire and PayPal co-founder, in Vance's political journey. He highlighted the stark contradictions within the Republican Party, particularly out-gay Thiel's support for Vance, despite his stance against gay marriage equality. Buttigieg remarked that Thiel is backing a candidate who opposes the very rights he embodies, Buttigieg said. Quote, I know there are a lot of folks who say, what's going on with some of these Silicon Valley folks veering into Trump world with J.D. Vance and backing Trump? Silicon Valley, they're supposed to care about climate. They're supposed to be pro-science and rational and libertarian. So normally libertarians don't like the authoritarians. What's up with that? Then he summarized the situation aptly saying, we've made it way too complicated. It's super simple. These are very rich men who have decided to back the Republican Party that tend to do good things for very rich men. I watched this interview on Bill Maher live, and Pete Buttigieg, it cannot be underestimated what a great communicator he is. And to break it down this simple, is that, Peter Thiel sits in a place of great privilege.
Yes.
His life is not going to be impacted whether there's marriage equality or not. He can essentially create his own reality. His stance is really more around, I'm sure, Republican tax policy, deregulation, and all of the other crazy ideas that he has. And he's basically given the middle finger to the LGBTQ plus community in his greed stance to support the Republican Party and people that are fighting against us.
Well, I'm all for people having the right to choose what party they want to be on. However, I just it infuriates me sometimes when I hear that someone LGBTQ is supporting someone that's blatantly anti-LGBTQ. I have a girlfriend. She's trans. She's a Trump supporter. I mean, like all out Trump supporter. And I'm like, girl, really? It's roaches voting for Raid. Really? You're supporting him? Anyway.
Peter Thiel is someone who didn't even want to be outed when he first was outed by Gawker, actually, which he helped finance to destroy. That's his view of pro-totalitarian is. He doesn't even like having free media around. One thing I will say, of course, like an awful billionaire being an awful billionaire, but it's nice to see a presidential election story that's about a millennial criticizing another millennial, and no 80-something-year-olds are involved in this conversation at all. It's wonderful.
Yeah, because we do have a nursing home in Congress, right? And in the Senate.
The oddity is that we're actually having to watch someone that's one of us actually step out and really own somebody else's message.
Yes.
When it's like, this is our story, and you're a part of that story, big guy. Mm-hmm. Sit in that seat. Let's do something together. Let's not throw rocks because you do have that privilege, as you were saying.
The question that I regularly ask people who, say they support Republicans because of, their stance on whether it's, foreign policy or tax policy or business policies is to say, and I say this to viewers and say it to family members is to say, would you be willing to support a Democratic candidate who supports our life and supports our identities, but say you just don't support, because they'll typically say, oh, I don't support that part of the Republican Party that's against LGBTQ. I'm just really for lower taxes. Well, there's another choice. It's called to support a Democrat and say you're not for their tax policies, but you are for their social policies.
Yeah.
But money usually wins.
Yeah, right, exactly. Put money
the,
over everything else. Yeah.
And I remember the old saying, socially liberal, financially conservative. And people used to say that. I'm always like, so you don't care what I do in bed, but you don't care if me or more marginalized people can't afford to eat or can't have a home or don't have a roof over their head. Like, I always am very suspicious of people who do put certain economic, like their own personal pocketbook. And I don't mean like to make sure they have financial economic security. I mean like to enrich themselves. I'm always suspicious of those people that advocate.
Exactly.
And I think lastly, I want to point out, J.D. Vance was really, handpicked and made by Peter Thiel when we're now in an election where we're getting blowback against our supposed new president nominee Kamala Harris for being a DEI hire when J.D. Vance was given basically a glide path to the Senate with Peter Thiel writing a check. So
exactly,
the richness is not lost on.
And don't let me get on J.D. Vance because I heard about his story, like where he comes from and the struggle and how his mother was, on drugs for many years and stuff. And then you think someone that goes through that struggle would have compassion for other people, like, the trans community and other people in our community and across the board that are struggling. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I got mine, so F everyone else.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically the mentality.
Yeah.
As long as I get mine, I really don't care what's going on with you. And shame on you for not being able to get it too.
Well, speaking of diversity, next, let's queer up business. Microsoft cuts entire diversity, equity, and inclusion team. What does it mean to LGBTQ people? A leaked email reveals Microsoft's decision to get rid of an entire DEI team sent to thousands of employees. The email cited changing business needs as the reason behind the layoff. The exact number of affected employees remains unclear. The unidentified team leader wrote, "True systems change work associated with DEI programs everywhere are no longer business critical or smart as they were in 2020. Despite this internal communication, Microsoft spokesperson Jeff Jones emphasized that the company's DEI commitments remain unchanged. He stated, "Our focus on diversity and inclusion is unwavering and we are holding firm on our expectations, prioritizing accountability and continuing to focus on this work." Following the murder of George Floyd in 2020 and the subsequent Black Lives Matter movement, many businesses, including Microsoft, pledged to enhance DEI efforts. Microsoft specifically committed to doubling the number of Black leaders by 2025. However, the recent email aligns with a broader trend of tech giants scaling back DEI initiatives. Other major companies have also reduced their DEI programs. Zoom laid off a DEI team earlier this year, and Google and Meta reduced their DEI efforts in 2023. Additionally, John Deere abandoned its LGBTQ+ inclusion strategy following backlash from right-wing pundits, and Tractor Supply faced criticism over its DEI initiatives. This industry-wide shift raises concerns about the future of workplace inclusivity and representation for marginalized groups. LGBTQ+ activists criticized the Microsoft move and suggested it is part of a response to ultra-conservative, anti-woke campaigns by the GOP, evangelicals, and Fox News. Well, people always wonder, like, Alex, you're always so critical of queer groups interacting with businesses and taking their money. It's like, it's not so much taking their money, I know that they're always just going to drop us. They'll drop us faster than a potential Grindr hookup, quite frankly. The moment it suits them to just say, we don't want that, it no longer suits our interests, really can be seen. And this is also, a reminder of another big thing, which is like, people they talk about diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace, but they never actually talk about making sure that employees are treated in a way where you're not using a lot of power over them. Because if you can abuse your worker, you're going to create discriminatory situations. But I also remind people, if you really want diversity and equity and inclusion in your place of work, including Microsoft, we have a different word for it. It's called a union. The only group that's actually going to protect you if you're a marginalized person, if you want pay equity, which notice that person did not mention equity in his speech. And actually the Human Resources Association took the E out of DEI earlier this month. You want pay equity, you want fairness, you want proper inclusive treatment. You need to have a union where they can actually have a representative to defend you. So that's my union plug.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Microsoft reached out to me in 2020 in order to become the group facilitator for the Michael Brown Foundation, because they had the Chosen Fathers for Change. They came down for a retreat. It was an amazing experience, but those monies that they are now cutting as far as through the program for their own respective organization, they are now going to probably reach over into maybe some of that other work that they've been doing with some of the other Black-led organizations, as well as some of the other LGBTQ plus organizations. It's just, it doesn't just stop right there within the company. I would imagine that spillover is going to spill right over into the community in a larger way.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah. That's what I was getting ready for.
Because so many times in working in big organizations, we have one message that goes out, and behind the scenes is something totally different.
Hello.
And, having worked for a company for 24 years, God, I'm dating myself. I remember what it was like, back in the 90s and the 2000s and things of that nature. I'm very happy where I landed now, but it's still a heavy lift. So
yes, and I totally agree with you. I can speak from experience. Being hired at a company during the interview, we're equal opportunity. We accept all people. I get hired, and then they treat me like hell. And they make me going to work like just even tolerating the work environment so extremely hard. Sitting at my desk, not being able to use the bathroom at this company, and sitting at a desk for 8 hours, holding my urine because all of my other coworkers can go, but if I use the ladies' room, I'm offending the women there. Stuff like that. And that's just one thing that I dealt with. And literally they told me, no, it's because I was the one when I went for the interview. I said, I hope that me being trans won't be a problem. I took the test, I passed the test. And I was hired, and it ended up being a fiasco. I mean, it was really tough. I bit the bullet, and I was determined to prove myself, and I stayed there for 7 years, but it was hard. It was really hard.
If I can just jump in and say, I knew that that's where you were going to end up, your determination. I think that is something about our generation, that we were willing to stick it out, which is something that this generation really needs to pick up.
Wow.
Is it a thing that they need to pick it up, or that employers aren't even giving them the chance? Because one of the things, the sort of issue is, our government doesn't really enforce workers' rights anymore.
No.
You go to any other country these days, there's far more concepts of workers' rights, there's far more options you have. Here, someone in your situation, yes, you can talk to one of the many legal representative groups here. It'll take years to get anything done, and they'll probably say, here's a couple of bucks for your time, and you've been out of work for 3 or 4 years waiting for an answer.
And then how much does that even invalidate your voice even in that workspace? Are you going to tell mama? You're going to go tell mama?
I'm going to also state that, again, without knowing the facts and us working for Microsoft, and again, also working for a big company, is that, when the Supreme Court took on affirmative action and overturned a lot of those, it led companies to have to take a deeper dive on how their presenting their policies. So the word DEI or departments that have, D under the terminology. So, yes, I mean, I think we have to look at DEI initiatives, whether it's that it comes under HR. HR is typically the first to get cut in any kind of budget cut. So across the board, tech companies have been cutting back staff, not just in DEI, but across the board. So there have been cuts across the board. Microsoft just last year got a 100% on the HRC Corporate Equality Index, which means they have policies in place that, of course, are affirming not just to LGBTQ people, but to diverse people. So, I think we, have to take it with a grain of salt of, they're maybe laying off DEI people, but they're also laying off people in other areas. But also, I think the initiatives within many companies, they have to rebrand them in a way that is both sensitive to the legal world that we live in today, with what's happened with the Supreme Court, but also to shareholders, because many of these companies, again, if you have a line item in your annual report that you spent $2 million on DEI initiatives, that may need to just be, as you said, displaced into other initiatives. And I think we're seeing that, again, being the chair for the task force gala, getting sponsorship, is also part of usually some of the DEI efforts of big companies. So, in many cases, even sponsorships are being, not that the dollars aren't there, but they're having to reposition them in different ways of why they're doing it. So it can't just be, we want to support LGBTQ people. It needs to be, we want to support, I will use my example as a bank, but this is not speaking on behalf of Truist, but we want to support, fair housing and lending practices in the LGBTQ community. That's different than just saying we want to support LGBTQ people. Still both positive initiatives, but it's the way they have to rebrand it.
Well, that sort of gets into but that also gets into the issue of like the Human Rights Campaign has been under a lot of scrutiny for how they give a 100%. They've given Amazon a 100% multiple times. I know if you meet any queer workers, there's some that are activists here in Broward County who will tell you about the brutal conditions they face. And I don't view that as a 100% scorecard. So like, you should always be careful about when a group gives those sorts of ratings. Like,
you have to know what the rating's for. Is it for working conditions, or is it for policies that are affirming, whether they provide, benefits for same-sex partners, whether you're married or not? I mean, there's a lot of other things on that list. I'm not saying that they're not valid. I'm saying.
But I mean, honestly, when you really think about it, like, if you're not going to treat your workers well, how are you going to be good to them as queer people or as black people or as women? And that's sort of, I think, the point of the story.
Very broad sweep.
And don't get me started on the Supreme Court. Trump really screwed us with that. I'm going to just say it. It's ridiculous. To take away affirmative action?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? And then as a company, you cut the entire department, like you don't keep like 1 or 2 employees. See, sometimes I think people do things and they camouflage it as a certain thing when it's really something else.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? Anyway, don't get me, y'all are getting me riled up. I'll do a table dance in a minute now. Anyway, to the next story. Let's queer up gay culture. Gay conservative Chad Felix Greene criticizes the singular they pronoun. Journalist and self-described gay conservative Chad Felix Greene has sparked controversy by attacking the use of the they as a singular pronoun and criticizing the American Psychological Association for endorsing its usage. Writing for The Federalist, Greene declared, quote, "The APA style guide is widely used in academics writing, and the decision to essentially create a new usage for an established pronoun is absurd," end quote. However, contrary to Greene's claim, the usage of the they as a singular pronoun is far from new. Dennis Barron, a professor of English and linguistics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, pointed out in a 2018 Oxford English Dictionary blog post that the pronoun dates back to 1375, appearing in the medieval romance William and the Werewolf. Barron also highlighted the widespread and often unconscious use of the singular they. Linguist Jeff Nunberg echoed these sentiments on NPR's fresh air in 2016 after the American Dialect Society named their word of the year for 2015. This recognition came after President Barack Obama used they as a singular pronoun in his State of the Union address. As respected figures like William Shakespeare and Jane Austen and institutions like the APA, the Oxford English Dictionary, and Merriam-Webster have embraced inclusive pronouns usage, Greene's objection seems increasingly out of touch with both historical precedents and contemporary practice. It's funny. I'm a trans woman. In case you all didn't realize. Okay. I'm trans.
We're breaking news here.
Breaking news. You all thought I was cisgender, didn't you? But no, seriously, I myself have to admit it. And I get so embarrassed. When I am around a gender non-conforming person, I will slip. I get like tongue-tied with the they and them, and I just automatically want to gender the person. But I'm getting better at it. But I will say this. We do it. In the story I just read, if someone leaves their cell phone someplace and you don't know who that person is, you're going to say, they left their cell phone. Are they going to come back? And you're referring to the person because you don't know the gender. So we do it in language, but it's just, I find it awkward, and I'm not going to try to pretend that I don't.
But I was going to say, sometimes I think too, we're lazy. We don't want to learn something new. I tell people, and since you opened the door, trans community, gay men over the age of 50, their language in regards to people of trans experience is abysmal. They have to be re-educated. And oftentimes they really don't want to be.
Yeah.
I think it's I've watched people struggle with it, and whether it's older or younger, and I really feel like sometimes it's the embarrassment of doing it wrong. So before anyone opens their mouth, misgendering someone from the get-go and just really fumbling through those conversations. I'm gonna own it. I have a content manager, and they are amazing. But sometimes I get quick in my day and I'm fumbling through text messages and I say she, and I screw that up. The thing about it though is that I'm very open and humble about I am going to screw this up, and I fucked that up. And she's allowed me to actually. Yes. There it is.
Yeah.
They've allowed me to actually come back and say, hey, look, that's not my intention. I'm sorry. I'm struggling with this. Please help me and give me that grace.
And most people, I'm sorry, Alex, most people will actually give you the grace. Try playing pool, having a couple of beers and you're getting your butt kicked and you turn around and you're like, dude, she, and then you're like, and this happened to me. And so, but there was a lot of grace that was shown. But make the attempt.
You can tell when someone honestly makes a mistake, and you can tell when someone's being shady. You can tell. It's a difference.
Though, I can't comment much on APA style. I know a lot more about AP style. And there's actually, Roy Peter Clark did this great book, The Glamour of Grammar, and he did a whole chapter on the concept of the singular they. Both in how we really, as you were mentioning earlier, your English teacher told you not to do it, but people have not been listening to English teachers for a long time, nor should we. We should be, language change, it's properly defined or whatever. But also, the most important thing is you shouldn't be deciding APA style based on a Federalist blog. This is a right-wing conservative. They are doing this just to mess with us. They did this with the term Latinx a few years ago. And I remember they're like, that's not how, you're not using the genders of Latino in Spanish language properly. I'm like, I'm not talking about how we use the word in the Spanish language, which they're trying to use the word E as a neutral instead of as well. We're trying to talk about how we talk about something in the English language, and you're clearly trying to use this as a workaround to shame anyone who just wants to be inclusive, to just get your way to force this heteronormative ideas that they're trying to push. And the people at the Federalists, they're helping with stuff like Project 2025. They wanted to delete the term sexual orientation that is in Project 2025 language. They wanted to delete the term gender and reproductive rights. They are very open about how they want to jail people who have doing anything. They think anyone who does any pictures of drag is pornography. They think they should be jailed. If you're a teacher who is done a picture of a drag queen, they say you're distributing pornography, they should be a registered sex offender. That is what this right-wing groups are talking about. And that's the stakes whenever you see someone doing this stuff. They're not trying to be nice.
Yeah.
They're just trying to start something.
Yeah. Go Kamala.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of these, these attacks, whether they're from language, identity. They're going to be amped up to the nth degree over the next several months. So get out and vote.
Yes.
Lord.
Next, let's queer up gay culture. Global Black Pride to welcome Yemi, Alade, Billy Porter, and Omawumi to Atlanta. This fall, Yemi Alade, renowned as the Queen of Afropop, will make history by headlining the Black Global Pride in Atlanta, becoming the first African music artist to do so in the U.S. Joining her on stage will be Broadway icon and Out 100 honoree Billy Porter and fellow Nigerian singer and actress Omawumi. The week-long celebration starting on August 27th will feature a diverse lineup of events, including a 2-day conference, a global village, a film festival, a 2-day music festival. Attendees can also look forward to parties, art performances, social gatherings, and concerts, with more talent to be announced. Alade, Porter, and Omawumi are set to perform on August 31st, concluding the festivities. Porter, an Emmy, Grammy, and 3-time Tony Award winner, will end his Summer of Pride series with an unforgettable performance at this event. Alade is known for her hit Johnny and collaboration with Beyonce on Black is King, and Omawumi is the West African Idol's runner-up. Both these artists advocate for gender equality and women's rights. The theme for this year's Atlanta Black Pride is Love and Legacy, emphasizing cultural expression and community dialogue. As the largest Black Pride event in the U.S., it promises a powerful and celebratory experience for all. I just want to point this out because just doing some research on Miss Alade, she is amazing. 7 languages at 35. I'm thinking I need to pick it up. Mm-hmm. This is going to be an amazing, amazing event. It's a week-long event. Yeah. I really believe that Atlanta has reached another notch as far as them being a model for the rest of us in the country.
And if they're going to have it anywhere, Atlanta is the place. Either Atlanta or D.C.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
And I've been to both prides. I've been to Atlanta Pride and I've been to D.C. Black Pride. And so it's definitely, it sounds like a lot of fun. It really does.
A lot of fun. And, I used to go to the circuit parties back in the day in D.C. and Atlanta. I always say that those two cities are cities where it's okay to be Black.
Yeah.
You can own it in your fullness. Just as a funny little quip, I want to congratulate you on your pronunciation. You did so well. I'm so proud of you.
Ooh, I swear, did you see that? I need a napkin, somebody. Wow. I'm definitely looking forward to actually hearing this show. This is going to be amazing.
Yes.
I hope Billy Porter wears that hat that we showed. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
He usually brings the fashion wherever he's performing, so I'm sure he's going to amp it up for this event.
Totally. Okay, next up, let's queer up the world view. New study revealed record-breaking 44% Gen Z identify as queer. New surveys revealed that nearly half of Gen Z age 18 to 24 now identify as not fully straight, highlighting significant change in sexual orientation among younger generations. Commissioned by Durex, that is the condom company, the Global Sex Survey interviewed 29,000 adults across 36 countries, finding that 44% of young participants embraced a sexual orientation beyond heterosexual. The surge in this non-heterosexual identification aligns with a broader trend of increasing acceptance with support for same-sex relationships, rising 34% since 2006. Despite this process, disparities remain across countries. While 69% of respondents in the Netherlands and Spain support same-sex relationships, the percentage is only 66% in the UK. Earlier this year, a survey by the Public Religion Research Institute revealed that Gen Z is more likely to identify as queer than as Republican. Specifically, 28% of Gen Z identify as LGBTQ, compared to just 21% who identify as Republican. Gallup data shows that in the U.S., bisexuality is the most common LGBTQ identity. However, the increased visibility of queer individuals has also led to heightened discrimination. According to YouGov, nearly half of LGBTQ youth ages 16 to 24 have faced bullying related to their sexual orientation or gender identity, underscoring the challenge that persists despite growing acceptance. Well, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I must say again, I'm so happy to have the youth story as I'm so young. But more importantly, a babe, that's right. That's right. The part that I really find interesting is the bisexual part, but let me jump to not fully straight. That is such a wonderful tagline. And when I was doing my men's classes, I would try and tell them that as we age, you know, your sex changes, your sexuality, how you perform, what you like. You know, there's a mentality that feels like I did it this way when I was 18 and I'm going to do it this way until I'm 94. That's not life. That's not reality. So to see that there's a shift, I can really appreciate that. To the bisexual part, you know, it's sad to say, but in this country, especially during the 80s and the 90s, people that identified as bisexual, they were villainized. Oh, you can't make up your mind. You know, you don't know what you really want to be. Oh, you're secretly this. And I appreciate that as the alphabets have continued to grow, you know, we have pansexual, we have asexual, we have all of these different things. But let people be who they are.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you know, while we have some shared experiences, you don't know what I feel.
Powerful.
And so we need to be mindful that we are all human. And my tag for this year is showing grace, extending it to others, but also extending it to myself.
Yes. Oh, powerful.
You know,
powerful.
I love the fact that you're really supporting the messaging behind that fluidity, right? We could talk about the Kinsey sex skills, but one of the things that I really want to focus on is like the rigidity behind the messaging as we try to put these kids in boxes or make them try and reach for one that they can construct. 45% based on the Trevor Project, 45% of the youth have reported on at least having thoughts of suicide. And I'm wondering if that's because of the rigidity that comes from some of the messaging surrounding them trying to figure themselves out. It's supposed to be about learning right there in school to learn. They're supposed to be growing in their own respect and right? Like give them some space, let them breathe.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think one of the things that really struck me with this story is that the fact that people are identifying as more people, I should say, from in that age range are identifying as something other than straight, heterosexual, to me indicates definitely the acceptance, because I don't think the numbers have really changed. Like when in our day, it was just as many people, but they were scared to identify. So that is a good sign. But then you wonder, because listen, I'm sure all of us, and I know for sure I was horribly bullied in school. It was horrific. And you bring up a really good point, because, you know, you're dealing with enough as a teenager going to school and trying to figure out your identity and, you know, your way, and then dealing with the bullying on top of it. So we do have to be very careful with that.
You know, seeing this survey reminded me, there was a book, 15 or 20 years ago about like Generation Q or something. Yeah. And it was how all queer kids, like, they're not going to use certain terms. They're all going to identify their own individual thing, which was allegedly what my generation was going to do. And then we ended up deciding we were like, we'll use the gay term, we'll use lesbian, whatever, you know. And I see this and I'm like, I think it's perfectly fine for young people to say they identify however they want. And as you were saying earlier, we'll see where they are in 10 or 20 years. There shouldn't be any pressure to have that identity. And I say that because, like, I remember a cousin of mine when he was 13 told me he was polyamorous. And I did not. I was a little ignorant at the time. I thought he said he was into polygamy, and I was like, "Are you done?"
Oh my God!
I was like, "You're too young for that." What? I had to Google it, and then it meant that he was into all genders. Yeah. But then, like, as I'm not going to name this particular relative before any feelings, but like, they were very trying to insist that they were queer. They've only dated girls. They just can't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was like trying to have a more open definition because honestly, like. Does anyone really want to be a heterosexual?
Well, I think the part of the story that I think is just reflective of the society as a whole is, they use that, queer versus Republican. The largest affiliation of voters are independent. The largest affiliation for religion now is agnostic or no religious affiliation. Yeah. Being part of some of the, when I worked with PFLAG, the youth that was, here at SunServe, the youth group here, they would, again, the biggest component of that youth group was they didn't want to identify in a box. Mm-hmm. So the trend is kind of a deconstruction of the societal norms of that you have to put every single person in a box for everything. Politics, religion, gender, sexuality. And this generation and younger generations, they are rejecting that construct. Yeah. And I think that this story, perfectly displays that.
Yeah, the labeling, always wanting to say, they're white, they're black, that's a man, that's a boy, having to label things. And it's just society, and that's what we live with. But I did want to say, oh my God, my age is going to show now because it just went out of my head. oh, I remember. Okay. And I'm still not a day over 30.
That part.
But no, that part. But no, what I was going to say is that I noticed the younger generation, a lot of them are more accepting. They don't really bat an eye with me. It's like the older folks and the middle range that seem to still have like a lot of the hang-ups. Yeah. Wow. But like some of these young kids, they're so progressive. It's like, I was in a doctor's office yesterday, young, thugged out guy. And he's sitting in there with his music in the massage chair. And I was like, is that a massage chair? He's like, yeah. And then a few minutes went by and he says, ma'am, do you want to sit in a chair to get a massage? And I'm like, no, you enjoy it. And then he started talking to me and it was like, yes, ma'am. No, but he's from Mississippi. So I'm like, oh dear Lord, you're making me feel old, boy. But anyway, very open.
It's funny because there's a comedian. She's like a teacher on TikTok, and she's like, "Oh, I love my kids. They'll respect your pronouns, but not you."
Yeah,
and it's so true.
Yes, that's true.
Well, and I think too, as I interact with people that are younger than me, it seems like now I have no choice. I was the young one, now I'm not. But what's funny is that when you meet them at their level, they're willing to communicate with you, and oftentimes people don't think I'm as old as I am. So, they're asking me to do stuff and it's like, baby, I can't do that. Okay. I'm like, there's a lot of dying spackle. Don't worry about it. But, we're not doing all that.
I hear you.
But to your point, I would just like to say, I don't want to belabor the time, but I also think it is the older generation that is stuck.
Yeah.
And I know I said that in the other story, but it is so true. You talked about bullying. I can remember being in a gay club, that is still existing. There's not a few of them. I've been here for 31 years.
Remember Sugars?
Oh, don't go there.
Remember Waterfront? Club 21?
I didn't go there. Okay, I'm just saying, no shade. But anyway, beautiful, beautiful bartender was a friend of mine, muscles on top of muscles. And we were having a conversation similar to this. And, I told him, at that time, bisexual. Oh, no. I've never dated a woman. I can't believe it. And there was a young lady sitting there at the bar, and he's like, well, talk to her. I'm a true Sagittarius. Do not dare me to do something because I will do it. So I turned to her, started having a conversation. There was chemistry. There was a connection. And people that know me, and my brother here knows, you're not going to get a lot of public displays of affection from me. But the girl and I actually wound up having a little make-out session there at the bar. This young guy could not believe it. We almost had to pick him up off the floor. And he got mad at me. He felt like I was betraying, part of the gay. And it's like, how am I doing that? I made a connection with a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moral of this story is make the connection with the person that you make the connection with, and hopefully you make a good connection.
Wonderful.
Amen. Amen. Well, on that note, next we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at the Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sundays, Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International service at 10:30 a.m.
We finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news, let's queer up politics. University of Florida's anti-LGBTQ president, Ben Sasse, resigns to care for his ailing wife. University of Florida President Ben Sasse, a former U.S. Senator from Nebraska, will resign effective July 31 to focus on his family after his wife, Melissa, was diagnosed with epilepsy. Sasse, who faced controversy over his appointment due to his stances on LGBTQ issues and the opaque selection process, announced his decision on Twitter. Melissa has been struggling with severe seizures and memory issues following an aneurysm strokes in 2007. Sasse became U.S. 13th president almost 2 years ago. It's a sad story, but I wish he went to take care of his wife at least 2 or 3 years sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't let the door hit you in the ass. Sasse. Bye.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, it's like good riddance. Even though, unfortunately, he's leaving because his wife is sick, but, good riddance.
Two things can be true.
And karma. Karma's real, y'all. When you think you're so against a certain thing, and a lot of times things happen and to humble you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the
next
one's
going
to do well minute news.
Yeah, my teleprompter froze. So anyway,
It's okay.
1 minute news. Let's queer up courts. Judge rules Jackson Reed High must recognize anti-LGBTQ Christian club. Conservative Judge Dabney L. Frederick of the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia ruled that Jackson Reed High School must recognize a charter of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, despite its leadership's opposition to same-sex marriage. The 31-page ruling emphasized the need for anti-discrimination laws to be applied even-handedly. The FCA allows members to hold personal views on LGBTQ issues, but requires its leaderships to oppose sex outside of marriage and same-sex marriage, defining homosexuality as sexually immoral. Well, I guess everyone has a right to their opinion, and I understand the judge, because if there's going to be LGBT groups, and I imagine there are, that, it would be only fair that there'd be this type of group. But I think that, it's a fine line, because you can have a group that has a certain moral code, but then if it crosses over into discrimination and being blatantly discriminatory, then that's a problem.
I mean, it's a conservative judge, so again, if the same club were to be an LGBTQ club that was against straight people, I would say that they probably wouldn't have ruled the same. But
that's a good point. That's a good point.
It's hard, but normally with student groups, like with the LGBTQ groups back in the 80s and 90s, it was normally as long as you could believe whatever you wanted, as long as you didn't discriminate in who was allowed to be a member. So technically, queer kids should be allowed to take over the club.
I like that.
Good point. LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Stonewall Museum's back on the drive on October 17th. Fort Lauderdale's Stonewall Museum National Archives and Library is hosting the second annual Back to the Drive celebration on Thursday, October 17th at the venue in Wilton Manors. This year's theme invites attendees to dress as the real or fictional queer person who inspires them the most, such as Freddie Mercury, Harvey Milk, or Marsha P. Johnson. Prizes will be awarded for the best creativity and authenticity. Guests will enjoy food, an open bar, music, and special guests. Tickets start at $250 and can be purchased at stonewall-museum.org. Complimentary parking is also available. I was just thinking who I would dress up as, and it did not come to mind yet, but I was going to ask Rajee who you're going to dress up as.
Well, God, I feel like I'd have to do either Marsha P. or Sylvia Rivera, one of the two. It sounds like a fun thing, though.
I love the theme.
The only thing is, it's funny. This is, we have the big Halloween festival every year in Wilton Manors. And one year I said, I'm not going to dress up. I'm going to go as myself. So I'm walking down thousands of people, because that's a big thing for our community. And this woman comes up to me with her kids and she's like, "Oh my God, girl, I love your outfit." And I'm thinking, honey, this is me every day. So I might just go as me. Anyway.
Well, I think to your point, I could think of some people that I admire, and I also look at their bodies, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not quite there, but to be my authentic self. I think that would be a wonderful representation, because there are more people who need to see what real queer life looks like.
Yes.
And how it presents. It's not always glam.
Hello.
Well, I will do a plug for the Stonewall Museum. I know they're on a big fundraising campaign to help expand. So whatever you do, I would say.
I will say this as a board member for Stonewall National Museum Archives and Library. Yes, we are trying to not only continue to raise the awareness for the programs that we offer the community as well as the country, because we are national.
Yes.
But we are also doing a big building fund push. I know I probably said that too soon. I apologize to Robert Keston right now. But we are definitely looking forward to seeing a lot of you out on the 17th. Please come and just celebrate with us, because we've come so far. And I think it's really important that we honor all those that have gone before us in order to just capture a moment, just to be able to enjoy each other.
And to try and distract the audience to whatever you don't want them to know, I will try to do my best, because I'm so butch to be Freddie Mercury.
All right. I'm waiting for it.
I'm looking for that.
Well, you touch my heart, because our history is important. And a lot of people are trying to erase us. And places like Stonewall are just so important to our community, because each and every one of our lives means something. We're passing through. And, we stand on the shoulders of all those people, and one day people will stand on our shoulders. And so this is something that's really, really important to our community, because we can't be erased. We cannot be erased.
No, and when you go to the museum and to just see what they have, and, to actually envision them having a bigger space to be able to share more of our stories, because what is there is so powerful. And you get to looking, and then I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so there's certain pieces that, I remember. There's certain pieces that New Yorkers remember. So to have a bigger space, we're going to speak that into existence.
Yes.
That more of those stories can be shared. I'm looking for that.
And please bring money. I'm sorry. I need
And that part,
baby. You want it?
Oh, God.
All right. So LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up politics. Trump's VP pick J.D. Vance blocks U.S. foreign ambassadors over woke policies. Last year, after arriving in Washington as Ohio's junior senator, J.D. Vance spent a year blocking State Department ambassadorial nominations over their woke and pro-LGBTQ policies. In April, he sent a questionnaire to over 30 nominees probing their views on different topics like diversity, equity, inclusion measures, gender-neutral bathrooms, pride flag displays, and gender-affirming care. A memo obtained by the Washington Post highlights Vance's strong opposition to these ideologies and his goal to eliminate them from U.S. government policy domestically and internationally. What a dick. Like, he is really trying to take away opportunities for us to just exist. Just like you said, he's trying to erase us.
Erase us. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I love Amber Rose, but when she stood up at that national convention last week or the week before and said, Republicans accept gay people and black people and this and that. And then you have someone that's the VP candidate, that's doing this stuff. Really, like, it's like they try to sell it like, oh, we're all inclusive when they're not.
But he's asking questions of his peers like, hey, what do you think about this? Kind of like doing like let me just kind of see if this is okay. Are you okay with this?
I think more importantly, it just shows that J.D. Vance spent his time in foreign policy worrying about pride flags as opposed to real foreign policy issues. And just remember, Donald Trump is not the healthiest person. So by electing him, J.D. Vance is one step away from being the commander-in-chief. And his foreign policy work was worrying about gender-neutral bathrooms.
To be a broken record.
Right, absolutely.
Yep. I can tell you exactly every word that J.D. Vance is talking about. That's all from Project 2025.
Absolutely.
Like, it's all their whole foreign policy agenda. They talk about they're very against the Great Awakening, and literally with the wording in there. So just remember, when you hear guys like J.D. Vance talk, he's a puppet for another.
And can someone please tell me the definition of woke? And to be alive, to be awake, to know. And so they're anti-woke. They want us all walking around sleep.
Well, actually, they kind of do.
Yes.
Insensitive.
Yeah.
I'm going to just move on to the next story. So, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up sports. Tom Daley debunks anti-sex Olympic bed rumors. Gay diver and gold medalist Tom Daley is preparing for his 5th consecutive Olympics in Paris this month. Between training sessions, Daley shared behind-the-scenes footage on Instagram and TikTok debunking the anti-sex bed rumor. Olympic organizers installed recyclable cardboard beds to curb sexual liaisons. But Daley's video showed these beds are sturdier than expected. Jumping on the bed, Daley proved they could withstand much more than just quiet sleep. Gay Twitter predictably reacted with strong enthusiasm.
And as you can see, they're pretty sturdy.
Okay, I can't help myself. I got to go back to the other one because I just had a really good thought. You said, Jeff, that he did not spend his time working on foreign policy. He was looking at, things. Are we okay with this? Are we okay with that? What he should have been looking at the convention is, why did Grindr crash? Okay, back to the story. I'm sorry. I tried, y'all. I really did.
It's such an atrocity, right?
Terrible. It's terrible. You just shut it down.
Right?
Yeah.
So back to my story. I believe that, this is cute. It's fun. Of course, they having sex over there.
Hello.
Okay. Come on now.
You put
I'm an old school girl, honey. I've had sex in the bushes, in the trunk, in the back seat, on the ground. All of you can have, if you want to have sex, you can find it a way to do it, okay? Yeah.
And let's not forget,
a cardboard bed is not going to stop them from doing the do.
and he's a whole married person, as I believe. So I believe his spouse is going to be there in the Olympic Village. And, you know, come on. Really?
You know, we've done a few Olympic pieces on the show before, and I tend to criticize them. This one is a different type of criticism because, like, the pair at the Olympics has done an unusually shabby job of where they're having people live. They didn't want to give people AC. The American team actually had to bring their own air conditioning. The Parisians thought it wasn't environmentally friendly. I'm like, then get some solar panels to power that AC, honey. Like,
I was just thinking that the athletes are lucky that they're on cardboard beds because they won't have any bed bugs. But
that's a good one. I'm a spoiled American, honey. I love my AC.
Shady news tonight.
Cliff, you got anything to weigh in on that?
I'm not saying a word. I saw that little boy picture and I was like, I got to go work out.
You're taking the fifth. You're taking the fifth.
I'm staying away from it. I'm staying away from it. There he is, right?
All right, everybody. Well, that is queer news for today. The LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Jeff Oliverio, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Rajee Narine-Singh, Alex Morash, Klifton Fehr, and Dallin Michael Greene, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Into our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you good night. Good night.